Hello, guys. Kentucky entered the competition these days to recruit one of the biggest rising stars in the country, Colton Hiller. But what could he add to the Wildcats team? What would be good for Pope's team about having this recruit? Let's see what's new. Kentucky has officially taken a major step in the recruitment of one of the fastest rising stars in the country. Five-star wing Colton Hiller has received a scholarship offer from Kentucky, officially putting the Wildcats into the race for one of the top prospects in the 2028 recruiting class. And that is what makes this development so important. Hiller is not simply another young player entering Kentucky's recruiting radar. According to the 247 Sports Composite rankings, he is currently the number 2 player in the country, the number 2 wing, and the top prospect in the state of Pennsylvania. So for Mark Pope in Kentucky, getting involved with Hiller means much more than simply adding another name to the recruiting board. It means positioning the program in a competition for a player who is already attracting attention from some of the biggest programs in college basketball. Hiller stands 6'6" and weighs 210 pounds, and he plays for Coatesville High School in Pennsylvania. Even though he is still in the 2028 recruiting class and has plenty of high school basketball ahead of him, he has already built an offer sheet featuring more than 25 universities. And that is where this recruitment becomes even more interesting for Kentucky. Among the programs that have already shown interest in Hiller are Alabama, Auburn, BYU, and Duke, along with several other national powers. So when Kentucky offers a scholarship to a player at this stage of the recruiting process, the message is clear. The Wildcats want to be involved early in a race for one of the most highly regarded prospects in the country. But to understand why Hiller is generating so much attention, it is important to look at what he has already been doing against high-level competition. During the summer, Hiller continued to strengthen his recruitment while playing for the PSA Cardinals on the Nike EYBL Under-17 circuit. There is an important detail here. Hiller was competing against older players, and even in that environment, he produced impressive numbers. Hiller averaged 18.3 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 1.0 assists per game, helping the PSA Cardinals reach a 4-3 record through their first 7 games. Those numbers help explain why he has climbed so high in the national rankings. Hiller is not simply producing against players in his own age group. He is showing that he can compete against older players and still make an offensive impact for his team. Naturally, that makes him even more attractive to programs evaluating his long-term potential. And Kentucky has been paying attention. During the first live evaluation period of the summer, the Wildcats closely followed Hiller's games as Mark Pope and his staff continued evaluating one of the most promising young talents in the country. That makes the scholarship offer even more significant. Kentucky did not suddenly appear in Hiller's recruitment after his national profile began to grow. The Wildcats had already prioritized him early in the process. Mark Pope and his staff were watching him closely, and now that interest has officially turned into a scholarship offer. For Kentucky, landing a player like Hiller would be significant because of where he already stands nationally. He is currently the number 2 player in the country according to the 247 Sports Composite, the number 2 wing, and the number 1 prospect in Pennsylvania. That puts a potential commitment from Hiller into a different category. This would not simply be about filling a specific roster need at a particular moment. It would be about Kentucky potentially adding a player who is already viewed as one of the best talents in an entire recruiting class. And because Hiller is still in the 2028 class, there's another important part of this story. His development is far from finished. The performances we are seeing now are part of an ongoing process, and Kentucky is trying to position itself during that development. For Mark Pope, that creates an opportunity to build a relationship with an elite prospect well before the recruiting process reaches its final stages. But it is important to keep this in perspective. Kentucky's offer does not mean Hiller is close to making a decision, and there is no indication that he is committed to the Wildcats. What exists right now is an official scholarship offer and Kentucky's entrance into a recruiting battle that already includes more than 25 universities. The goal at this point is to be involved, and that could become particularly important because the competition is already extremely strong. Alabama, Auburn, BYU, and Duke are among the programs that have shown interest, along with several other national powers. Now, Kentucky is part of that group. For the Wildcats, this is the type of recruitment that could require patience. Hiller is a 2028 prospect, which means there is still a long road ahead before his recruitment reaches its conclusion. At the same time, because he is already valued so highly, every step taken by the programs involved could matter. Kentucky has now taken that step, and there is a reason Mark Pope and his staff made Hiller a priority early in the process. When a player is ranked as the number 2 prospect in the country, the number 2 wing, and the number 1 player in Pennsylvania, according to the 247 Sports Composite, he naturally becomes an important recruiting target for any major program that believes it has a chance to land him. For Kentucky, that would mean potentially adding a player to the future of the program who has already demonstrated an ability to produce against older competition and who is attracting attention from some of the biggest programs in the country. His performance on the Nike EYBL Under 17 circuit only strengthens that evaluation. Hiller averaged 18.3 points per game, along with 3.3 rebounds and 1.0 assists, while competing against older players. And perhaps the most important part is that Kentucky has been watching this development closely. Mark Pope and his staff were present during the first live evaluation period of the summer, evaluating Hiller as his national profile continued to rise. Now, with the official scholarship offer, Kentucky has made its position clear. The Wildcats want to remain in this recruitment. And for a program that wants to stay among the major players in national recruiting, being involved in recruitments like this is extremely important. Hiller is already considered one of the best players in the 2028 class, and Kentucky has secured a place among the programs trying to recruit him. It is still very early. Hiller has plenty of high school basketball ahead of him, and his list of interested programs could continue to grow. But for now, Kentucky has accomplished something important. The Wildcats have turned their interest into an official scholarship offer after closely following Hiller throughout the summer. Now, Kentucky officially enters a recruitment that includes more than 25 universities and several of the biggest programs in the country. And considering that Hiller currently ranks as the number 2 player in the 2028 class according to the 247 Sports Composite, it is clear why Mark Pope and Kentucky wanted to make sure they were part of this race. If Kentucky can continue building its relationship with Hiller and eventually convince him to choose the Wildcats, the importance would be significant. It would mean landing a player who is already considered an elite national prospect and who is showing that he can compete at a high level against older players. For now, though, the story is just beginning. Kentucky has made the offer. Mark Pope and his staff have already been evaluating Hiller closely. And now the Wildcats are officially in the race for one of the biggest names in the 2028 recruiting class.